Let's look at a new wireless video transmitter that may just be the best budget option that we have now, the Accsoon CineView Quad. Well, hey guys, my name is Ryland Russell. If you're new to the channel, I'm a worship pastor and media arts guy who's always on the hunt for the best budget-friendly options that we have out there when it comes to technology. And I've reviewed a lot of wireless HDMI transmitters on my channel. You can see those in the description of this video. But Accsoon actually reached out to me and asked if I would take a look at the CineView Quad units. And they're an interesting spot in the wireless HDMI SDI market because they're only around the $500 mark. These have SDI and HDMI, and they're $525 right now. The HDMI only version is a little bit cheaper in the upper 400s. And right now, currently we use a Teradek Spark 4K, which is around $1,500, and we also have a Teradek Ace 500. These units are zero latency. So if you need zero latency, absolutely zero, these are great units. The Accsoon claims to have less than 60 milliseconds of latency. So we're going to put some tests together and see if those claims hold up. Before we jump into the latency tests, post below, what is your use case that you're looking at an HDMI transmitter or a SDI transmitter for? Here's 3 good ones that I can think of to use. Obviously, for a roaming camera during your live stream, that's a great one. But also, I could see these being perfect for a lobby live stream pre-show host camera. You could actually use what I'm doing right now, a DJI mic into your camera, and then that would sync up with the audio and video no matter what the latency is when you go to it on your switcher, and just use the audio coming from that camera for your wireless lobby host section. You could also use these for, like, if you have a baptistry set off to one side of the room, or even in your lobby like some churches. This would be handy because maybe you don't always have it in the same spot and you want to have somebody up there in the middle of the action to add to all your PTZs you got everywhere. This is a cool unit that you could maybe try out for something like that. So comment below, how are you guys thinking about using this unit? Let's jump in to the latency tests.
For this latency test, we've got an HDMI coming out of this GH4, and this is the correct way to do this. You're going into an HDMI splitter straight from the camera. One of those outputs is going straight to my ATEM, and the other output is going over here to the Accsoon CineView. So you can see I've got one input on preview and one input on program, and I'm recording onto my Atomos here, the multi-view, so that way I can freeze frame and see exactly the difference in milliseconds. This unit claims less than 60 milliseconds. Let's see.
Let's do a voice latency check. Right now, the audio you're hearing is being recorded on this lapel mic. And so I'm gonna sync that right now. With the hardwired camera, because that's essentially what we would do on any live stream. You know, your audio is gonna need to be delayed a little bit to match your video, your hardwired cameras. The real question is, right now when we switch to the Accsoon feed, is my voice still perfectly in sync, or is it now a little bit off of the words? Because that's a problem I've had in the past using units like the Hollyland, even their C1 unit. It had so much latency, 120 milliseconds, that a close-up shot of someone speaking just looked weird because the mouth wasn't in sync any longer. And so that is a thing you have to consider with the latency. So I was actually pretty surprised. The latency is, for me, right around 60 to 75 milliseconds on average. And we're running our stream at 29.97. So it's kind of interesting how milliseconds and frames per second work hand in hand, okay? So 29.97, each frame is about 33 milliseconds. Now, if you're running at 60 FPS or 59.97, you're looking at, I think it's around 16 is a frame. So you're going to have more apparent latency, more frames out of sync than you are getting on a 29.97, or even, it's even better on a 24 frames because that's about 42 milliseconds. So for us, we would be getting about 2 frames is what I'm seeing. Whenever I clap my hands, you can see that 2 frames later, those hands are meeting. And so I think you can get away with 2 frames on speaking. I don't know if I would use it for like a super close-up shot, but I think it may work pretty well. All right, let's jump into the second big thing that's important to me, and that's range. And we've got a pretty big facility here. I'll kind of give you a bird's eye view of where I'm at and how far away I am from the transmitter. Here's the range test.
All right, so this is our worship center. This is where we would usually use our wireless transmitters for roaming camera operators. And I've got the receiver set up right over here next to where we usually have our Teradek Spark 4K, not Spark 4K, that one's the Ace 500. So it's in the same spot that we always run this. And our Ace 500 never has issues. So I'm just going to walk around and we're going to see if we have any dropouts. So typically our operators are just walking around the worship center like this. So there's our sound booth. And we're probably about 65, 70 feet away from the transmitter right here to receiver. Now we're on the other side of the sanctuary. Have we dropped out any? Like I said, the Ace 500, once it's connected, we can pretty much go anywhere we want without worrying about it. Now I'm going to walk out in the hallways. We'll see how it does there. So I'm going to walk all the way down this hallway as far as I can get away and still be in the building. We'll see if it stays connected at all. In my previous tests like this, the Spark 4K and the Ace 500 have always been fine all the way up until we get to this T. So now we're in our central hub. The sound booth is on the other side of that wall where the receiver is. So there's a lot of, just big ceiling and glass doors and things like that. But we do stuff out here all the time with our wireless video stuff with the Teradek units. Pre-service, post-service little things. So how's it holding up so far? We're gonna take it outside. We've even done some stuff outside. We'll see if it can stay connected. So I'm trying to keep the receiver facing the transmitter. So we got glass in between us now. If we go over here, we got brick. Is it staying connected? I'm still pointing the transmitter at the receiver. Now I'm going to point and have my body in between it as well. Let's see if it ever comes back.
I've got to say, I was super impressed with the range on this unit. The Teradeks that I've tested in the past and that we use week in and week out, they're solid, but I have always experienced dropouts on other ends of the building, going behind tons of walls. They will drop out, and I'm guessing it's the combo 2.4 and 5 gigahertz spectrum that it's using to send 2 simultaneous video feeds and then merging them together when one is dropping out. That's making that such a strong signal. So I was pleasantly surprised by the range of these guys. So to wrap things up on these CineView quads, I think they're a pretty solid unit, especially for the price. Much better than even like the Hollyland C1 as far as my testing went. Some of the best features are that 2.4 and 5 gigahertz kind of meshing together system. It appears that that's working really well. Also, the fact that you have HDMI and SDI options at this price point, I think is a pretty good feature. The fact that it will convert for you, say you HDMI out of your camera and you're going SDI into a ATEM constellation, that's a great handy thing. Also, there's no fans on these units. They didn't seem to get hot, where like these Teradeks, man, I feel like this Spark 4K is gonna like melt my hand if I ever touch it. The app that's built in for previewing is actually, I could see that becoming pretty handy in certain situations. If we have like a remote person running a camera or cable cam, or just seeing the framing of our shots with those 2.35.1 aspect ratios. Also, it has peaking and the exposure, stuff on there on that app as well. It's pretty cool. Another big thing that I like is the fact that it takes just Sony MPF batteries, and so it does not come with anything besides these units and some little adapter things for cold shoe. So there was really no reason to do an unboxing and a manual. But Sony MPF batteries, if you've got these laying around, they just click in and then you're good to go. So the external batteries I like compared to like our Spark 4K, that you charge this and it runs for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, somewhere in there depending. This does 4K, and these only do 1080p up to 60 frames per second. So that is a difference there. But I like having the MPF batteries just because if we need to swap them out between services, we can do that, and I'm not having to like recharge a unit over USB-C. So there are a couple of negatives that I did run into while I'm testing these. One is just being able to power them off. It has a little power button on top, but if I ever wanted to turn them off and move them, I was having some trouble just getting them to power down, so I'd have to take the battery off and then put it back on. So that was a little oddity there. Another downside I would say is, while these antennas are really cool that they can fold in and fold out, I really prefer the units that don't have any antennas at all. It's just built in, because these were like catching on HDMI cables off of our gimbal and things like that, and I'm afraid I'm gonna like pull them and break them. So while they're still small compared to a lot of those units out there, and they fold, that's cool. They can be a little awkward. So that's been my experience with the Accsoon CineView Quad. Lots of good stuff. Check them out. I'll link these in the description. That will be an affiliate link if you use it. It doesn't cost you anything more. It kicks me back a tiny bit of money. But I think that this is an interesting piece of tech for our churches that is meeting that price point area that we really do need a little bit lower latency than the Hollyland can offer. So check out the Accsoon CineView Quad. We'll see you guys in the next one.